Welcome into this Five Clubs conversation. I'm Gary Williams. And look, I love all the conversations that I'm fortunate to have right here with everybody who is in the industry of golf, whether they're playing, calling it, running an organization. In this particular case, the person who's going to join me in a second had a Hall of Fame career. She was actually the first person that went into the LPGA Hall of Fame. She went into the World Golf Hall of Fame in 2000, and she's a Hall of Fame broadcaster. And if you look at all time, whether it's coaches or players, who's had a Hall of Fame career as a player and then as a broadcaster, or a coach and then a broadcaster? John Madden, John McEnroe. Well, Judy Rankin did both. And Judy is not only exceptionally skilled as a broadcaster, she's just a really good person. And she's such a valuable voice who is stepping away from her responsibilities on television. But there is nobody I'd rather talk to about the state of the game, and also to kind of look at her career and how it all got started after she was done playing at the highest level. So I'm looking forward to this as much as any, this conversation with a member of the World Golf Hall of Fame. With that, we welcome in the member of the World Golf Hall of Fame, Judy Rankin. Judy, my friend, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And I hope you are.
I'm doing really well, thanks. And I will tell you, as you said before we came on here together, you said, I did this all by myself. So I want everybody out there to know, Judy did all of this by herself.
I actually got on the Zoom meeting all by myself. And I was a little panicked 8 minutes ago. But here I am.
That's how I feel anytime I have a Zoom call. I still think you would give me one aside with technology. I am completely ignorant on all of it. But you look great, and I know that the week is a big week. I know you're going to miss being at the U.S. Women's Open, but I know you're always thrilled to be around the people at the Captain's Club, and obviously being with Jack and Barbara and everybody there at the Memorial Tournament. I want to go back because there's a lot of breadth to all the things you've done in your life and in your career. Where did golf start with you? How old were you when you first put a golf club in your hand?
6. In St. Louis, it's when they had the very first driving ranges with lights at night. And at this point, my mother became very ill, but at this point, she was not. She and I went and watch my father hit golf balls. We sat on the bench back there, and as any 6-year-old does, I wanted to try, and turned out I could hit it. And my father became fascinated, that I could hit it. So the next year of my life was spent hitting golf balls, and much of it in a hotel basement that a golf pro in St. Louis had at the Chase Hotel. And it was an indoor basement place to hit golf balls in the winter. There were tarps up and sand at the bottom. And so this golf pro and my father sort of built my golf swing. And by the time I was 8, it was pretty perfect. And it's gone downhill ever since.
What was it after that first time? Similarly, I was 6 years old on a range in Boone, North Carolina with my dad, and I could hit it. But you got to the rarest of air as a player. What kept bringing you back? Improvement? Is that what was the continual stimulation and curiosity with the game because you were getting better at it?
Well, there was no doubt my father was a driving force. And as I said, my mother became very ill right about then. She had a malignant brain tumor and died when I was 11. So my father and I were spending a lot of time alone. And he became, really dogged about my being as good as maybe I could be. And he used to say, you don't have to do this, but we can't afford to do it if you're not going to do it as well as you can. So his whole thought at that time, so we're in the 50s here, his whole thought at that time was, he always said, if you could play golf well, it'd make your life better. And how many times I have said that came true. But I was more the case of I was a pleaser, I think, as a child. Maybe I still am a little bit. But our life was quite serious because of my mother. And I just pretty much, did what my father told me to do and wanted me to do. So I kind of think that golf found me rather than me falling for the game. And then, as time went on, it became evident that this was what I was going to do. And, if all things had been well, what I thought I wanted was in the fourth grade, I wrote this great story about a girl named Connie who was an ice skater. And I'm probably lucky for me, that's not what I went after, because I wouldn't be talking to you today, and I would not have been successful either, because I can barely skate. So that was all the early years. And then good things happened, and opportunities happened when I didn't expect them at all. And so too young, I turned pro when I was 17.
That, first of all, to turn pro at 17, to win a state amateur at 14, you're a prodigy. You're special. Did golf make you feel special at that age?
I suppose to some degree, but when I was not, I wasn't a huge part of the high school scene and this and that, although I had good friends. And in junior high, I was a cheerleader. So for basketball. But golf was just, it was too much of who I was, really, in many sorts of ways. My grandfather would refer to me to my grandmother as Judy the golfer, and she would get so mad at him for that, because she, I don't know, she had a little wisdom, I suppose. But golf was, like I said, it found me, and I kept having things drive me forward. Like I also have already said, I probably turned pro too young, but there were other factors involved, and we were always of very modest means. I don't know what made any of us think you could earn money playing golf, because you really couldn't. What you earned was would keep you eating.
Right. Did you when you win early, I would assume that you have these expectations of yourself. Did winning make it harder to keep winning, or did it make it more possible to keep winning? Because momentum's it's an elusive thing, particularly positive momentum, but when you get it, you can ride it. Did you ride momentum to more wins, or did winning make it harder to keep winning?
I didn't win for 6 years. I'm almost a Betsy King story. She didn't win for 8 years.
Right.
And then look at how fabulous her career was. But I had a very hard time winning. Part of that came from my own mistakes or whatever. And part of it's just, it's hard to win. And, part of it sometimes is just bad luck. You play really well and somebody plays better. But when I finally did win, I thought it would open up the floodgates, but it didn't for a year or so. But then I got where I entered a tournament thinking that I had a chance to win. Yeah. And I had 2 or 3 years where I was really successful. And Gary, a lot of people don't believe me when I say this, but I am quite convinced that I am not by nature a competitive person. But there is no doubt when I would put the tee in the ground, I became a competitive person. But like Annika, I believe in knowing her a bit and then watching her all those years. I think Annika is one of the most competitive people I've ever seen, and I think she thrives on it. And I think that's probably one of the reasons she's such a parent, because she's going to be the best parent, that sort of thing. But I don't think I thrive on competition. I I don't think I have to be the best or the first or whatever. But there is no doubt that that came out in me when I played golf.
Did you had close losses, particularly in major championships? Did they sting less because when it was over, that they still hurt?
Yeah, yeah. I did a lot of crying playing golf. I even cried quite sincerely one time when I won. I won in Canada, and we were driving, and Yippee was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. And I don't know, it's just all the emotion of everything. And I think sometimes people who watch the best golfers on television or in person or whatever, and I do the same thing we all do. You sometimes forget that they have a real life going on too. You know, that's their career, but there's life behind the scenes. And for a whole lot of reasons, I just, cried for 30 minutes, and I just won. So it tells you a little bit about what that competitive world is like, and how you keep so many emotions in to play golf at a high level. And you do, and you have to.
You mentioned Yippee, your late husband, and I talking to players who look, it's the only thing you think about at a young age. You have this dream, you fulfill the dream, and then life starts to intersect, whether it's getting married, having children, and one of the things that I've always marveled at about Jack Nicklaus is this sense of balance that he maintained at the highest level, without feeling like there was this extraordinary burden that came with it. Did you feel like you were achieving for more than yourself once you had a relationship where you were in it together? Your life was not a solitary pursuit. It was something you were sharing. Did that make it more fun, or did that make it harder, like you were achieving for both of you?
Well, I think most people would tell you, and maybe they have their head screwed on really well, if it's not the case, but most people will tell you that those close to them, whether it's a parent, a husband, a wife, or whatever, they tend to live and die with how you play. And they are as emotionally involved almost as you are, and yet they have no ability to change any. They have no ability in the heat of the battle to change anything. So they go through a lot too. And I was a long time before all the sports psychologists. So you have this dad, you have this husband, you even have this kid now who is saying, "Gee, why'd you do that?" Or "Why'd you play so bad today?" Or whatever it may be. Even Nancy Lopez said that if she didn't play well, it was really quiet around the house at night. So that's hard. And players that we know today, like Lexi Thompson, maybe players like Bubba Watson, all these players are talking about the fact that you have to separate what you do for a living from your real life. And I don't think if you're an accountant, you tend to take it home as much as you do when you're what you do well is very public. I always say golf is a little bit like taking an SAT test every day, and they put your score in the paper. So but I think there's so many players now talking about that, and it's not amazing to me, because I know how everybody in your circle gets so involved. But I do think I was never a big fan of the sports psychology thing early on, but I can see where it's helped a lot of people to think straight and to get their priorities right and to stay healthier while competing on a big stage. And with many expectations, and as crowds grow and all those things, It's not just the expectations of your family, but now it becomes the expectations of your fans, you know, and they can get on Twitter and tell you what they think. So there.
Yeah. And Judy, you know, your analogy about the SAT test, I love it. And now with the proliferation of social media and all the coverage that you can identify a featured group and watch every shot, they want to analyze every answer on the test before you go on to the next question. Like, I don't like the way that she or he answered that question, but let's just go on to the next question. We'll see how the result of this test is when it's finally over. You're spot on about that. You know, when you have the career you had, Vare trophies, money titles, players of the year, there was a sense, I would imagine, of accomplishment and pride. But then what's next? And recently, I know Jay Billis had this conversation with Annie Roddick, and he said, I didn't know what was next. Like, I'm a young guy. I don't know what I'm going to do for the balance of my life. And for you, it was television. And you were joining a team. Now, I'm a junior in high school in 1984, and I'm curious about TV, and I'm a complete golf geek. And you join what I think is like the 27 Yankees as far as a broadcast team. I mean, Jim McKay and David Marrs, my favorite of all time, and Jack Whitaker and Peter Allis. I mean, this is tall cotton you're getting ready to walk into. What was your feeling about doing this?
Well, first I wondered why I had the courage on the telephone to say, yes, I would do it. And secondly, I was really frightened and trying to act like I wasn't. But I tend to be, you know, reasonably honest. And I think everybody knew that this was, you know, quite the stage for me. I had played very poorly at the end of my career. I had a very bad back, and I blamed, you know, every single thing on either the way I swung the club or on my equipment. I'd change it, and it was just, but the fact is, I physically couldn't do it anymore. And I had a procedure done in 1983 that was not surgery, but it was worse than when I had surgery, and I got worse. So at the time when they called me, you can imagine, I mean, I wasn't playing golf at all. And you can imagine how welcome that call was. I had always loved golf on television. And so I went to that first tournament, and I've told this many times. The blessing of all blessings was I didn't have to look in the camera in the job I had. So I was out on the golf course. It was the Women's Open. And all I had to do was answer Jim McKay and Dave Marrs questions and talk about, as I remember, Hollis Stacy. And so I could kind of lean against a tree and talk about what I knew. And I didn't have to look in a camera ever that whole week. And that gave me a little confidence because, you know, I was basically phoning it in. And then I got the call the next spring. Actually, it was very late spring. It was not too long before the US Open at Oakland Hills. And they asked me if I would come do the Men's Open. And if you think I was scared that other time, then I'm flying up there thinking, what in the world have I done? You know, and the players, I always say, the vast majority, and any number I knew, but the vast majority, they were so great to me. There were a few who it's like when you bring the new puppy in the house and the other dog won't look at it. There were a few who wouldn't look at me, but you know, I guess I won them over time, and then ABC, and I think everybody should know this. They said the very best thing to me that week they could have ever said, which it got me thinking right, and maybe speaking to the television audience right. And they said, we do not want your expertise as a woman. We want your expertise as a golfer. Mm. And that was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I would have tried to figure out how to put the two together. and I no longer had to do that. And it meant a lot, I think, for my performance. Not that mine was a performance, but for my communication. And it helped me for so many years, and I always remember exactly what was said to me.
Do you I've said about you, you're the most efficiently impactful communicator in the medium that I've ever seen. Was that just luck, or was that something that you consciously worked on to be able to make points so economically, but you would leave people, me included, going, I'll be damned, that's really astute. How'd she do that in 8 words?
Well, so I was, after Rossi,
Yeah.
and a little bit maybe Ed Sneed,
Yep.
I was the next on-course commentator around the board, I believe. And at that time, you didn't have the role you have today. So you answered questions, and you didn't even control your own mic. It was all done in trucks. So what happened with me is I was at the very beginning of that role, and I grew into what it's become today, where you actually have your own space and there's a rhythm to how this works and this, that, and the other. And where you control your own mic, all those kinds of things. All that happened in the early years that I was working and when I spent so much time on the PGA Tour. But there was a need for fewer words. You didn't have that long to say it, so you had to find a way to say what mattered, I think. And golf has maybe a little. You're trying to do that in a way that makes a point, but is also just a little bit conversational. And another thing that ABC did, which I think is part of television golf now, is they made it very clear that the show was not about us, but about the players. And so they finally, as time went on, they found a way to have the rhythm to the way we did things and how you would hear it in your ear if you were on the golf course, so that you didn't have to say names. So the host would introduce the shot, but maybe the hole announcer would say, here is, or the host will say, we'll go to 12. The hole announcer will say, this is so-and-so, so-and-so, third shot. And then now it's my space. And we never have to use the names. So you use the names periodically just to confirm to people who you are. But other than that, you don't. And there was a rhythm to that ABC created.
The one person I didn't mention before that was part of this, it was a very limited role, but was Jack Nicklaus, who had a contract with ABC to contribute. And I famously in 1986, when Greg Norman won the Open Championship, Jack came down from the tower. He was one of the first people to meet him. But I always thought Jack was, and I was saying this to somebody earlier, Judy, that he is so competitive that every time I've interviewed him, he always says to me, Gary, what are you going to ask me? And I'll start to tell him, I'll say, oh, just ask me anything. And I can tell that sometimes there is true indifference about doing it. And I get it. And then he gets in the middle of it and he can't help himself. He just wants to give a good answer. I thought he was a great analyst. What were your thoughts about being around him in an environment where, look, he won the Masters in 1986. He was a 46-year-old man and was still highly competitive, and he was lending his voice to this incredible list of voices of accomplished broadcasters and Whitaker and McKay and players and you and Peter Allis and Dave Marr. What was Jack like then?
I got to know him a little bit then, but not all that well. When I've really gotten to know him is in the last 15 years. And I was pretty put off by him in those early years where we worked together. And he was to me like he is to everybody else. I thought he was Jack Nicklaus. And now he's Jack, and he actually calls me on my birthday. So what can I tell you? I told this story at Memorial one time, and Jack was in the booth, and he was the analyst, and I was at the 17th hole at St. Andrews with John Daly. And as I told the story, I said, well, this is the only time in my life I ever really wanted to kiss John Daly, but he was in the right rough over there at 17. He'd hit it kind of over the corner of the building. And I was describing the shot and the lie. And Jack said, well, Judy, that long wispy stuff can really wrap around a hosel and turn that thing over. And I am thinking, and I guess I said, I think he can play from this lie. And about then, John Daly hit it about 15 feet from the hole at 17. And if I could have kissed him at that very moment, I would have, because I was right. And because I was there, giving Jack all kinds of credit. I was there, but it was a funny thing. And I think Jack in the early times was a little put off with my being there. I think he thought he had to school me a little bit. And, the truth probably is many times he did. I know I learned something from him. But that was that moment when I privately got to, get my confidence boost. But I was also with Jack when he played his last round at St. Andrews, when we were on TNT USA. I'm not quite sure, but it was a Friday. And I was in such awe of the way people received him.
So through these years, as your profile as a broadcaster is getting to the point that, not only are you accepted by all the players in the game, along comes somebody who is like 100-year flood, and that's Tiger. And I just give me a first impression and kind of an overall capsule of what it was like, the atmosphere, the experience, and the optics of what you were watching when he came along.
Well, I was lucky that I was there at Milwaukee the week he turned pro. So I actually, face to face, physically got to know him when he was so very young. And then I was inside the ropes with him so many times that we had quite the inside the rope friendship. And I so appreciate how he let me know that he trusted me, and that I was at least presenting what he was doing, pretty well, and that we could have a little talk here and there, and he would know that I had a sense of what was for television and what was just us having a talk. And I also believe that Tiger had some sort of sense of that I was doing a job. And at some point later on, as he became Tiger, or that flood that you spoke of, I know he had to have, in his smart brain, known that every time he gave me access, that was helping me. Mm. So we have that little bond, and for whatever hasn't been right in Tiger's life, everything that he ever did with me was always right. Mm. And I like the guy and I respect the guy, and I saw golf that, I don't know, and you rarely get to see some of the things that I saw with Tiger. And Abe is ABC and then ESPN, who put me in a position to see some of those things and to be there. And I've said this before too, but when you're not playing, when you have a little expertise and then you're not playing, you get the real sense of appreciating what people do. the men and the women. And that is what's been so great about the seat I've had all these last years. Is I was always a little bit angry or down or whatever about my own game. I'd be up and I'd be down. I must have, inside of me, I might have been a little love-hate relationship.
Right.
But now I love the game in a completely different way. And I love it when I see people who are so uber talented. I mean, these young women who are at the top of the game on the LPGA Tour, it just, Raymond Floyd, we were at a Ryder Cup. I'm trying to think where, but what was the Ryder Cup in Kentucky?
Yeah, in Louisville, 2008 at Valhalla.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. So we're on the practice tee, standing back there watching. And he said, Judy, they play a game I am completely unfamiliar with. And so I have been describing a game that I am pretty unfamiliar with, other than I've watched it come to this. And, those are some of the interesting things that I think. And I do now I can sit and watch golf, and I see here and there around the world women doing what I did. And I don't take pride in too many things. I don't think that's a good thing. But I am so happy to see that women are accepted in all forms of our sport now. And that they just do a great job.
And they're being rewarded in ways that I think are overdue. And I do want to talk about where the state of the game is. I want to ask you one last thing on the broadcast front. When you said goodbye, for all intents and purposes, as far as your regular role as the lead analyst was at the Chevron, and you've shared a lot of time on the camera and away from it with Terry Gannon. And Terry is somebody I've been fond of, going all the way back to when he used to take really ill-advised jump shots at NC State. And I'm a North Carolina fan, but I appreciated his gumption to take these shots. But anyway, there's a chemistry that you two have that is very rare. A lot of people work well together, but there are people that I spend a lot of attention listening and watching what it is on television, particularly sports broadcasting. You two have something. Where did it come from?
Can you tell I have dogs?
Yes, and I love it.
Okay. I think we're just really genuine friends. And there is one really nice thing about sport is that real often age doesn't make such a big difference. And so we have more fun with our difference in age than anything else. But he has never treated me like anything but a grown-up female with golf expertise. And he'll make jokes about my age, but I can make jokes about the fact that until I got to him, he always wore gray.
Yes.
So no, we are genuine friends. He was a friend of my husband's. The guy showed up when my husband passed away, as did Mike Tirico, as did a lot of people. And these people are a huge part of me. And this last part of my life where I've done television has been so great. But Terry and I, Grant Boone called me his TV wife. And I think I'm Terry's TV wife because we can kind of finish each other's sentence. But he has no problem telling me when I'm, not on the mark. And in fact, we are really good friends. I know he's doing a senior tournament in Michigan right now, and I spoke to him last night. So it's that kind of thing. And you know how you have a friend that you don't see maybe for a year or two
Yep.
in between? Well, we would go months and not see each other, but you just pick up right where you were. And I think our friendship, and a lot of friendships that I've had, they are proof that men and women can be real friends. And anybody who thinks that that's not right, I beg to differ.
It's very well said. You know, as far as the talent level of men and women today, I don't deny across all sports with the specialization, with the speed, the athleticism. But I always believe that skill is a very transformational thing, that you can take the skill of Lou Alcindor, and if you put him in the NBA draft this year, he'd still be one of the top picks. And as I apply it to golf, if Ben Hogan or Mickey Wright were on a range, people would walk down to them as quickly as they would to Dustin Johnson or Bryson DeChambeau. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I do think the greats in the game would be good in any generation. I would have to say, though, in the case of Mickey Wright and Ben Hogan, we would really have to do some arm twisting to get them to play with modern equipment. Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, Mickey, she loved to hit balls the last 10 years of her life. And I don't know that she ever even tried a modern golf club. So she was a little stubborn, and maybe a lot of the best players are a little stubborn.
I think they are. Judy, I think that technology is something that not doesn't level the playing field, but narrows the chasm between the truly elite ball hitter and somebody who's good. And that's why I think technology was not the greatest thing for Tiger. I mean, if everybody remembers, you saw it. Steel shaft, not the biggest head driver. And he was just simply better than everybody. And same with Hogan, same with Mickey, that technology, it's like, well, more people can hit it with that stuff. Give them this and let them try to shape a golf shot. Couldn't do it.
My son coached golf for just a few years in high school, and his golf team was at my home one night in Midland, and he took him out in the garage and was showing him
your equipment,
old two iron and 3 iron and all that. And these kids had never even seen that.
Right.
You know, and it was shocking to them. And that was probably 15 years ago. So, you know, it's come a long way in 15 years too.
Yeah, it has. You when you look at where we are, and next, you know, with the U.S. Women's Open, the purse, and I had a conversation with somebody who's one of the leaders of one of these organizations a couple of years ago, saying, just do it. And whether right now you go, well, I don't know how we can monetize this. Yeah, you will. You will. I know that this is going to be something that you can be made whole if you double the purse. Does doubling the purse inspire the next generation, or is it just rewarding the generation that is playing for it currently?
It's an interesting question. I don't know if the 10-year-olds who are good consider that today. I do think probably the best college players that look forward to a professional career consider it. But it is a great reward for the current players who support the LPGA, do a lot of the things that you don't get paid for, to keep it in the public eye and to just do the right thing with the game of golf. I think it's a great reward for them. And I didn't think I'd see this. Mm. I really didn't. So it's something unimaginable to me. I actually won 28 times. I get credit for 26. One was a team tournament, which I understand, but the other one just wasn't considered official, even though there were 50 LPGA players in it. But I'm going to say I won 28 times.
We're giving you 28 here.
I never won $1 million. So you can see how I would feel about this.
Sure. 1.8 for the winner. And the other thing that I think is going to be, and Beth Ann Nichols wrote about this, and I appreciate that she did, just saw this morning, that the women who missed the cut are going to make twice what they made last year. They're all going to get $8,000. Now you can say, well, now for a number of players who are playing on the Epson Tour, who you look at what they've made so far this season, that is sustaining the dream for this season. It's allowing them the elasticity to keep, and those are things that are the fingerprints of the little things that you need to do for the players trying to get to the next level. That to me is as impactful as the 1.8 for the winner. And the 1.8 is going to get all the attention, but the 8,000, everybody who's showing up there next week's a big deal to me.
Oh, I think you're so right. And it's possible that somebody who wins 1.8 comes out of nowhere, but it's more probable that it's somebody who isn't struggling for money. And so we all know what it's like to struggle for money just in your life, or if you're trying to travel the road and play the golf tour. So yeah, you're right. It's a big thing.
The Rota, I'm just looking at where the U.S. Women's Open is going. Pebble Beach next year, and then soon enough, Riviera, Inverness, Oakmont, Pinehurst #2, the Curtis Cup, Marion this year, Sunningdale, Bel Air, National Golf Links just announced. What does that say, Judy?
It says that the USGA has really stepped up to the plate, and the USGA has set a mark that invariably will be contagious to corporations and other organizations that are looking at women's golf. And if I could hope one thing for women's golf, and this is true in golf across the board, except with the biggest events. If I could wish for one thing, it would be more physical fans. Mm. I think television's gotten so blooming good that it's so nice to be on your own couch, and it's work to be a fan. But imagine the NCAA, imagine the Final Four and no people there.
Right.
Or 30 people there. Okay. So physical fans are part of what feeds this whole thing. And when you get a PGA championship, when you get a US Open this next week, there will be a lot of physical fans. But we need it in all the right towns and all the right places for women's and men's golf, in the country. You go out of the country and you get huge fans. I mean, the Open Championship, the Women's British Open, those kinds of events when the LPGA plays in Asia, not a problem. There's all the fans you want. Mm. Or Solheim Cup matches, that's been super great.
Yeah, it has. And you captained 2 Solheim Cup teams. Women's golf in this country, how would you describe the state of women's golf in the United States?
Are we talking generally?
Generally.
Yeah, I think on the rise. I am I'm constantly impressed with all the young girls playing golf, and the way LPGA, USGA girls golf has grown immensely. I have a tiny little cottage industry foundation that funds some junior golfers for the summer and so on, and lots of girls are playing golf. And I think I'm seeing lots of girls that look like they might be good, but I think we're seeing all girls who might play golf for the rest of their life and might get their family playing or their friends playing. So I think in the world of the industry of golf, the next 10, 20 years ought to really be good.
And the USGA, with what I've had several conversations with Mike Wan about this, and I've always believed that USA Golf should be there should be a grassroots investment in the game, whether it's for the elite player or, like you said, players who put golf in their life and keep it there, and they're getting ready to put in a significant infusion of money at the grassroots level. Do you think that is the right thing to do, that USA Golf should be a federation like all these other nations around the world, that we should be investing in the game at every level?
Well, yes, I think we should be. I think we have relied on college programs, and I think it has to be earlier than that. I mean, college programs have been our minor leagues, and they've done a darn good job. Don't get me wrong, but we are also in our college programs celebrating all the players from around the world, and yet around the world they all have their own organizations that are supporting these kids. And in Sweden they send them to Spain in the winter to practice and all those kinds of things. So they are given all those props in their country, plus they are getting the advantage of our university programs and our college programs. So if we want things to go forward, and not just women but men, there should be an avenue that you can take to get great support from a national team. I know Julie Rankin is really high on that subject. A gal, Myra Blackwelder, who played the sport for some years, and her daughter played college golf and all, and her husband's always been involved in golf. But Myra has really done behind the scenes work, but I don't know that much has happened as of yet.
A couple things before I let you go. Michelle Wie making the decision. I don't think it shocks or surprises many people to kind of turn away from the game on a pretty full-time basis, which injury and the birth of a child have already done that. How would you describe her career?
I always called her kind of a mystery player, because you didn't know if she would show up, and she was always pleasant and nice, but you didn't know if her game would show up. And when it really did show up, it was phenomenal. But then there were times when it wasn't at all. A lot of people think it should have been managed differently. I can't make those decisions, but I like her. I think she's got a really sweet life right now. And I don't think she wants to work at golf anymore, because she's probably been working at golf since she was a pretty young girl. And I think she wants her celebrity in golf to take her into other things. And this I know for absolute positive, man or woman. You cannot play any of these tours part-time and be successful at all. It's just not what's happening this day and age. So I think she's doing the right thing. And you got to wish her well, because she has taken the celebrity and the talent that she's had, and it's culminating now, and she's in a really good place.
She is, and you mentioned about the mismanagement. I'd like to believe I try to avoid doing this, telling people what's best for them when I have trouble doing the best thing for me. I think winning is a skill. And even though there was tremendous curiosity with her pursuing things, specifically in the men's game at a young age, all the great players learned how to win at every level. And I think that there was skipping of steps that put her in a position where I don't think she won as much, because she was not in a position to win an awful lot as she made the journey. That's just part of my position on it. The most important thing, Judy, she seems happy, and that to me at the end of the day is really the only thing that matters.
Yeah, no, she does, and I know she's a U.S. Open champion, but you really have to go back to when she was 14, 15, 16, and she was such a phenomenal golfer.
Oh.
Maybe instead of the accomplishments that she's had, we should celebrate her for some of the great, talented exhibition golf we ever saw. And we saw, because of that, we thought this was the next thing. And, maybe, and I do believe in her heart it was the next thing. But I think when different things happened, it became so hard, injuries, this, that, and the other. she took the time to see another side of life, and she's grasped it quite nicely.
She certainly has. All right, 5 quick questions to end with. Who's the best ball striker you've ever seen?
In the women's game that I ever saw was Mickey Wright, because Mickey was taking that little tiny blade 2-iron and hitting it sky high before anybody in the women's game could hit it high like that. And I didn't see everybody in the men's game, but I think the most creative ball striker in the men's game that I've seen was definitely Tiger. I think he could find a shot for any situation, and I also think Tiger was on a mission with this series of teachers to become the smartest golf swing guy in the world, and he may be. I mean, I saw him win on a broken leg, and now we're seeing him play some extraordinary golf shots with a damaged leg. So, he's my pick.
Okay. You have to pick one partner to play a better ball match with, but it's the combination of skill and conversation. It can't just be the best player. They have to be good, but they have to really be able to entertain you and hold a good conversation over the course of the round. Who's that?
I'll take Inkster.
Okay, yeah. Good pick.
Yeah. Because we would do a lot of laughing. She would do a lot of funny critiquing of my flat golf swing. And it would be good. Okay.
Your favorite city anywhere in the world to visit that includes a golf tournament to cover?
One of my very favorite golf courses in the world, and my favorite, I always say it is Sunningdale. So I'm going to say anywhere in the world. I'm going to say London, and the tournament's at Sunningdale.
Okay. When was the last time you got upset with yourself on the golf course?
The last time I played.
Okay. You and Yippie's favorite dinner company on the road in your career, who is it?
Oh, boy. I had some great times with Peter Allis, and so did Yippie. And I'm going to Peter's memorial at the Open Championship. So I would say, Peter Allis could drink a little red wine from time to time, but he could also not drink. He would take months where he said, I'm not drinking now. But this one particular night, he had had a considerable amount of red wine. And Yippie mentioned at dinner all of a sudden that he had left his watch in the room. And he was a little concerned, and I'm a Pollyanna, so I think it's going to be all right, So he doesn't go up there. And we were in a hotel that was kind of big. It took forever to get to your room. So now, because of the watch situation, Peter's going to walk to our room with us and make sure his watch is there. Well, we opened the door and his watch was there, and Peter kissed us both on the cheek goodnight.
That's a perfect way to end it. Listen, I am incredibly grateful for the time. I'm an enormous admirer of all the things you've done, the way you comport yourself. And I will tell you, it was at Muirfield Village a couple years ago, and I saw you, and I saw you very infrequently. And I was trying to get healthy, and you said to me, "How are you?" And you didn't say, "How are you?" like, "How you doing?" You said, "How are you?" like, "How are you?" And it meant a hell of a lot to me. So thank you. And thanks for taking the time to do this.
Well, you look like $1 million. And, I think you're happier than you've ever been. So go for it.
Thanks, Judy. Thank you again to Judy Rankin for taking the time. If you listen to that and you watched it, there is a pleasantness to her that is as authentic as it gets. And I love her. I love her as a broadcaster and as somebody who I've had some time with. And mostly it's like this. She's there and I'm here. But when I've been around her, as generous with her time and with her thoughts as anybody that I've ever encountered in my career. So I appreciate her. And most importantly, I appreciate everybody out there listening and watching to this Five Clubs conversation. It's a huge week with the U.S. Women's Open. If you have not watched or listened to Emma Carpenter's interview and her conversation with Karen Stupples, do just that. Great insight on the women's game. And we'll see you next time on the Five Clubs conversation.